Welcome to New Hampshire Politics with John Burt. I'm John Burt. Well, today we are going to talk a little bit about politics. It's about the bill, it's the death penalty repeal bill. I want to talk about that at the end of the show. But at the beginning, I thought I'd have some fun, and I went through my camera, my cell phone that I have a bunch of pictures on, and then also I got that cool camera, and I need to pull that out because I want to start using that again now that the spring's here. And I just took a bunch of pictures, and I said, well, I'll bring them in and share them with you because I get good feedback from you guys saying that you like that, and I kind of enjoy it too. You know, it gives me a little break from politics, because politics can wear on you, and which I do love. Because I know nothing about sports, but politics. I love politics, but. The sad thing is you can lose some friends, but I try to be neutral with everybody, and if I have friends that don't want to talk about it, I don't talk about it. But if somebody wants to talk about politics, I like doing that. But the first picture I want to bring up was back in mid-March. It just shocked me. I woke up one day and I look out my window at the chickens and I go, whoa, we got some snow. And this was just mid-March 2018, so just a short time back. And it almost looks like a winter wonderland. When I saw that picture, I just love looking at it, and it's really cool the way the heavy wet snow was holding everything down. And just, especially I don't know if you can focus in on it, it's kind of hard to see it, but the fence down there, the gate was open. The fence over there, all the snow was just building up on the fence. It was really neat how it did that. And of course the chickens, they'll stay right indoors. They don't like coming out in that. But I do have a couple New Hampshire Reds, and what are the other kind? Stars, Red Star chickens, I think they're called. They're pretty hardy. They'll go out into the snow and they don't care. The other chickens are looking at them like, no, we'll stay in here. But then the next picture is the same chicken coop, of course. But that's on April 4th, I think I took this picture. It was April 4th. And the snow's pretty much gone. Oh, I think you can see just a little bit left over. There's a big snow bank that when I bring my snow blower. I found that if I snow blow away from the house, on the chicken coop side of the house, I don't get any water down in my basement, but if I don't, it seems like I can get a little bit of water. I didn't have any water problems in my basement, never have since 1978 is when the house was built, until the Mother's Day flood. That was quite a few years ago, and it popped a vein or something in there. But I'm trying to fix that this summer. I'm going to finally take care of that problem. But I just love having that coop down there. A lot of people will stop. I see them taking pictures, and and I tell them to go down. They'll go down and visit the chickens. But then the next picture is of a bunch of eggs, and I got 10 chickens. Big chicken doesn't lay at all. I know she doesn't. The other 2 lay occasionally, but I got 7 new chickens, and I'm getting 6 to 7 new eggs every day. And that's a lot of eggs. So, I'm giving them to a few of my neighbors that I like, and then also, well, I like all my neighbors, but there's a few that I really like, and I give them, because we're friendly, and I give the eggs to, and, a few people stop, and, I got some friends over on the back center road, we give eggs to them, and my father-in-law, he eats some eggs. I went to IHOP with my job once, and we had some eggs down there, because I love eggs. I have 2 eggs every day. So for lunch, I had eggs again. And you have to put salt and stuff on their eggs. You can tell the difference. I don't put anything on my eggs from my eggs, the homegrown ones. I don't know what it is, but they taste a lot different. I really do believe that. Now the next picture, I got to get bigger pictures in here the older I get. I'm going to need those. Yeah, that's just my chickens down in there. What I did is I throw some scratch. I got a little scoop. I don't know how big it is. It's not very big, so I do it a couple times a day. And the second they see me coming out, they know what I'm going to do. So I go grab a little scratch there, and it has the seeds and stuff like that they want to scratch all day. And chickens, that's what they want to do. So I just throw it out on the floor or on the ground, and they go over and start scratching and eating, and they really enjoy it. So I try to do it a couple times a day, and then my wife will make up some mealworms and other specialty stuff that we buy, and she'll send me out with that, a little bit of bread in there. They love that. And it's really funny. I think I've told you this in the past. Big Chicken is really funny because she's my favorite. And matter of fact, I'll go to the next picture, and there's Big Chicken, the big one there. And then the other, the red one there, that's a New Hampshire red. She was kind of like photobombing, "Hi, I'm here." So it's really funny the way they do that. I'll throw a bunch of bread off to the side, and all the chickens head over, and I'm like, Big Chicken, come here." She'll look at me, and then I'll throw a couple pieces to her, and then I'll throw a bunch more over to the other side to keep because they'll, Big Chicken's, she's got to almost be 7 years old, so that's really old for a chicken. I can't believe she's still around because usually they'll last 6, 7 years tops. So I think Big Chicken's on her last leg, but I give her a little extra treats every now and then, so I kind of spoil her. And the reason I want to keep bringing my pictures of my chickens in, I have people that call me up or they'll get a hold of me on Facebook or whatever it is, and they want to come down and look at my chicken coop or my chicken area, because I do have a fancy coop. It has automatic lights, automatic doors, automatic waterer, so I only have to change my water every couple weeks. I clean it out really good, or every week. I try to do it every week, but I can go up to 2 weeks when I was gone to Alaska. And, I just made it really easy. Now, you don't need to do that, but if you want, right now is when people are buying their chickens, the little chicks. So if you want to get a hold of me, just do that. If you want to come down, I love showing my coop off, and I'll talk to you about it. You can look at them. Chickens are really, really, really easy. I just can't tell you how easy they are. The next picture is, you'll see my wife's car. And it was so funny. On the back of it, of course, I wouldn't have done it, but it just happened, mysteriously. That's what I tell my wife. And it says, "John loves Phyllis More." And that's my wife. And what was so funny is I posted this picture on Facebook, and several people said, "John, does your wife know about Phyllis More?" They were saying Phyllis's last name was Moore, the lady that I wrote on the back. And I wrote back, "Well, no, and don't tell my wife Phyllis," because I'm going to get in trouble. It was just hilarious. But I always do kind of this silly, probably, juvenile stuff to my wife. There'll be notes in the shower. She'll open the shower and there's a picture or a sign that says, "I love you more today." And, she'll just shake her head and go, no, it's not true. But, so I just have a lot of fun with her. I'm very blessed to have my wife, and I want to make sure she stays happy. Then the next pictures is the first one's of the, the Waumbec mill. I think I told you a little bit about the auction I went to there, and one rifle, I guess it was a really nice rifle, sold for $49,000 at this auction. And I had my $400 in my pocket, and I'm thinking, I probably can go home now because I don't think I'm going to buy anything for $400. I've never been to one of these auctions. Knives were selling for $2,700, $2,500. Every gun was selling for $1,000, $2,000 and up. But there was a couple of them. They were in the $50,000, $60,000. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm way out of my league. And, I think I told you that, a gun to me is a tool. I don't collect guns. I like my guns, but I don't collect them. And these are collectors. I guess they don't use them. And I just can't imagine owning a gun, never using it. But, hey, if that's what you're into, my hobby is chickens. So I'm into my chickens, and I go out and, build stuff for them. That's my hobby. Well, I guess other people's hobbies are guns that can afford it. That was the Amoskeag, or the Waumbec mill, which is owned by Amoskeag. And the only reason I want to bring this in, and the next picture is look at all the workers could you imagine back in the day? And a friend of mine and I were just talking about this. You know, a lot of people said, oh, they're sweatshops, they're terrible. Well, no, they were high-paying, good jobs back then, because you could be on the farm with a horse and you know, a plow, a single plow, plowing an acre of land in a day probably. I think that's what they based an acre on, how much you could plow in a day with one horse. Back-breaking work, 12-hour days, 7 days a week, or you could work at the mills for 10, 12 hours days. A lot better working conditions. Even though we look at it today and say how horrific it is. And then the next picture is of, I think, some of the, it's inside the mill. And it was some of the machines that, you know, did the sewing and stuff. Today, that is extremely hard work. But back then, you know, they had an easier job than what they came from, which was mostly firemen or other mill work. And it was just incredible. But the lock, the canals and the locks were built in 1807. And then they started building the buildings in 1810. And the Waumbec, I couldn't get a good number on it, but I'm guessing it was built in the 1840s, 1850s. I just look at the size of that building, the granite and the foundation and everything else, and the timbers inside are huge. And I just wonder, you know, somebody had a blank lot there, and somebody put a shovel in, started digging, and that is what ended up happening, was that mill was built. I just can't imagine back in the 1800s building something that size. And the next picture is of the staircase. That's what I was coming down. These are my pictures, the next two pictures. To have Muskeg molded into the stairs. And these mills, they got to be pushing, you know, 170 years old. Would that be right? Yeah, 150, 170 years old. Somewhere's in there. And for them, you know, because 2007, that would have been 200 years ago that they started building the canals and the locks, and then the buildings were in 1810. Yeah, so some of them are approaching almost 200 years old. But to have Muskeg milled, you know, stamped into that steel, you know, how did they do it back then? It just fascinates me. And then the next picture is really cool of the windowsill. I love looking at that. When I came out of the auction there, I saw that window and I was like, and I went over and I felt it and I said, they're all curved. I'm assuming it was a mill that did, you know, a mold that did that. But, you know, maybe somebody chiseled. I don't think it would be. I bet you that was a mold that did that. I'd love to have anybody, you know, any of you guys tell me if it, you know, how they built those. But I saw all that and I said, you know, just the workmanship that went into every one. And the walls are like this thick. I mean, they're huge. Yeah, just incredible. So that's about on the mills there. I'm fascinated by them. I'm so glad whoever the mayor was that said they weren't going to start, you know, they were going to stop tearing them down. And I know Brady Sullivan and a bunch of other people, the developers, bought them up. And I heard for nickels on the dollar. I heard like some of the big mills went for $10,000 with the stipulation that you couldn't tear them down. And you drive down there now and they're all booming. I mean, you know, whoever had that vision really did well. The next picture is of Bob's Big Boy. I don't know if there was one in Manchester, but there was, you know, I grew up in New Haven, Vermont, which was just south of Burlington near Middlebury, Vermont, Middlebury College. And it was so neat. I would go up to Burlington on Shelburne Road, and here is that, it was huge, you know, very tall, you know, as tall as the building, if not taller than the restaurant, and it was the Bob's Big Boy. I wonder where that you know, statue or whatever you want to call it, that sign is. But it said Bob's Big Boy, and I think this one only says Big Boy. But ours in Vermont was Bob's Big Boy, and I didn't know if there was one down here. I know they said there was an A&W over by the Muskeg Circle. You know, they said that was there, and there is still one that I know of. Well, I know it's still there, but I think it's the last one in New England. There is an A&W in Middlebury, Vermont that's still open every summer. So they'll be opening up pretty soon. So if you want to take a day trip over there, you could go over and back in a day and go, you know, to the, now this time of year they're only open on, well, I think next month they'll only open on weekends. They're only open during the, 7 days a week is, during the summer, and maybe some in September. But other than that, it's pretty much just the weekend, so make sure you call over there. The next picture is so funny. This is Carla Gericke. She's, and I was terrible with her last name, so I apologize for getting her last name wrong. But she's going to run for senator against Lou D'Alessandro. She ran last time, and she did pretty good. I think if she runs a couple times, and she just got to get her message out that, Lou's a nice guy, but he doesn't vote like me. And Carla will vote like me. So, make sure you vote for Carla. But it was so funny. I go up to the State House, and there's a ton of people with pictures everywhere. So I look at her picture, and I'm like, what is this? And it says, "I'm so mad, I made a sign." It was hilarious. I mean, everybody was laughing with her, and it was just hilarious. But anyways, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the bill that we had. What day was it? I think it was April 4th. So it's going to be going to the full House in the next couple weeks. I did not bring the House bill number. Usually I do. It is a Senate bill. I apologize. But if you Google death penalty repeal, it will come up. And my good friend Kevin Avard, and I really like Kevin, he's a great guy. He's the one that put this bill in, and he was really good. Now, I'll be honest, when it comes to the death penalty, I support the death penalty. Now, I'm not a big supporter of the New Hampshire death penalty because it is very narrow on who can be qualified for it. So I'm neutral. I could vote either way on this. And I'm having a hard time deciding how I'm going to vote. So today, we had a lot of people talk, both sides that wanted to keep it. And again, I forgot the paper to bring because I knew these people's names. But the next picture is, they had a lot of preachers there. They were against it. He spoke, more biblical and said, this is what the Bible says. But then other people got up and said, well, the Bible also says that if you commit a crime, it's an eye for an eye and, or, blood for blood. So if you draw blood, they get to draw blood on you. I was listening to as much as I could and try to absorb it in. But then the next picture of that is the police officer looking at me. Just as I put the camera up there, he looks right at me. He supports, he's against the bill to repeal. And the reason he said is Michael Addison, the murder guy, and there's no questions that he murdered Michael Briggs, the officer in Manchester. He says if this passes, Addison doesn't get to walk, but he gets life in prison without parole. And that is why they're against it, because they said it narrowly picks certain people that if you murder them, like judges, police, children, if it's really heinous, and there's a few others that are classified in there. The only one that's ever been picked for, and I think it's been since 1938, it was the last time New Hampshire put anybody to death. But what they said is that they want to keep Addison on death row, even though it's going to cost us $5 million to get him to death row, and then they say it's going to be another $5 million to build a facility to put him to death. And I'm like, really? They said it cost about $1 million to put somebody in prison until they die for life. So they're saying, we're going to spend 10 times the amount. Well, again, I just don't know how I feel on it. The next picture there is of a gentleman, I think he's a preacher. He was definitely against it. He doesn't want it. And then the last picture I'll bring up is of Bob Clegg. He had some good points. I like Bob. He's really good at how he says things. And he goes, what happens if you make a mistake? Because he asked me, I asked him where he was on the bill, and he said that he doesn't want to make mistakes. Because from what the testimony was, and nobody disputed it, there's approximately 170 people across the nation that were on death row that DNA, got them off death row. I would hope today isn't the case, and that was brought up, that with today's DNA and et cetera, that would not be the case. But then they also said, somebody else got up, down in Massachusetts, I don't know if you remember hearing this in the news, 14,000 cases. That's what this guy affected. This lab guy basically just made up stuff. Most of it he didn't test. He just would write down what he thought was right. So now there's 14,000 cases that they're looking at going, what do we do with them? These people are probably in jail falsely. They don't know. And I guess there was a lady up here in New Hampshire that brought samples. She was in the lab, the state police lab. She would bring samples home. I don't know why she did that, but then they're tainted. And so I guess mistakes can happen. So again, I'm on the fence with this. They did bring up, I was very surprised. Senator D'Alessandro voted no on this bill to repeal the death penalty. It's definitely a nonpartisan. Democrats, Republican, it don't matter who you are. Half are going to vote yes and half are going to vote no, or vice versa, whatever, how that's going to turn out. But he was a no vote in the Senate. I was really surprised on that. But then they kept bringing up, they brought up this really heinous crime that he didn't get the death penalty, and I'm surprised he didn't. I guess this happened in Concord back in the 90s, if I remember right. The wife had a domestic violence against him. They both broke it. The wife says, hey, you want to come over? She had a 10-week-old baby. Also a 1.5 years, if I remember correctly, and a 2.5. She said, could you come over? They went over, had a little hanky-panky. She says, I want to go to the store. Could you watch the kids? And he says, I'll watch the kids. And there were all 3 of his kids. Well, then what ended up happening, she went to the new boyfriend's house, had some more hanky-panky, so she was a busy girl, came back, I guess he had a violent streak in him. He said, were you fooling around? And she admitted that she was with a boyfriend. Well, he snaps, which, isn't a good situation. He ended up killing the 3 kids and the wife. And they told us details on how he killed them. He held the babies down until they suffocated. They were kicking and everything else. Or, I don't know how they know this, but I'm assuming that's what happened. Just the details I heard, I'll tell you, I'm not going to go into all of them. It makes you sit back and go, wow, that guy deserves the death penalty. And that's why I want that option. But then on the other hand, like Bob Clegg said, I don't want to make a mistake either. And people, they keep bringing up how infallible people are, that they keep making mistakes, and it's true. The other one they brought up was the nap girl, if I'm saying it right. I think it was nap or nappin. I think it was nap girl. And I'm trying to think where she was. Kentucky? I think that's, and I don't know when that murder happened. But they blamed the mother's boyfriend, future stepdad, for the murder. The DNA got him off because the guy that raped this little girl, I think she was 5 or 7, maybe 8 years old, might have been 10. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember. But they got her, the DNA got him off. But they kept saying, the people that supported the repeal kept saying, oh, look, we could have almost put somebody to death. Well, no, you couldn't have, because the DNA got that guy off. Now, if the DNA was wrong, well, okay. So they arrested one guy, the stepdad or the future stepdad, they arrested him, but then they found out because of the DNA, it isn't him. So, this is a real hard bill for me. So, if you want to give me a call or something, let me know how you think I should vote, because I'm having a hard time with it. And when the vote comes, I got to make up my mind and press the red or green. But anyways, we're at the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed the pictures today, and I'll bring some more in as I take some pictures. And I am going to start my interviews, I promise. I've been saying that for months now. But the weather's getting better and better, and I do want to go down on Elm Street where there's a lot of people and ask them questions like, you know, is Trump doing a good job, or, you know, gun control, or whatever's the hot topic of the day is. I just want to talk to people and kind of be a man on the street. I think it's going to be pretty cool when I bring those videos in. And so, you know, thank you for watching. Until next week, I'll see you then. Bye now.